when the Fed printed a bunch of money during COVID and gave it to like BlackRock to manage, like, was that incompetence? Especially when BlackRock like wrote a plan at the end of 2019 of the monetary policy that the Fed followed exactly when COVID happened, about what the Fed would need to do during a unforeseen crisis. I mean, it's just like, was that incompetence or is that corruption? You know? And so, I mean, a lot of times they try and absolve themselves of like, when they sort of get caught or start to get caught for something corrupt, they'll be like, oh, don't look any further. We're just really stupid. If you consider just like the massive amount of wealth transfer that's happened in the past 20 years to like the people at the very top, obviously, well, I think it's obvious, but I mean, that can't all have been because of incompetence.
Popular journalist Whitney Webb has made a name for herself, not just for her deep and insightful analysis of a lot of societal problems, but her bravery in constantly calling out the BS of the global elites. In a recent interview with Peter McCormack on the What Bitcoin Did channel, Whitney opens a nasty can of worms about a huge conspiracy to regulate the internet and put a complete and permanent end to privacy and anonymity. According to Whitney, the plan is to subjugate the entire global population and ensure that humans can no longer think for themselves. This will make us subservient enough to take anything the ruling class offers us so they can keep their throne while we keep whatever little trinkets they hand down. Whitney adds that this is why politicians and regulators are throwing every ammunition in their arsenal against Bitcoin and the overall cryptocurrency industry. The leading cryptocurrency, especially, is in the crosshairs because it is one of the few things that can even remotely impact their plans. During the interview with Peter, Whitney reveals that there are well-formed plans to put artificial intelligence in charge of the internet. AI will not only be in charge of censoring everything that appears on the internet, but will also be used to make the lion's share of online content. With AI dominating the information environment, whoever programs AI and stipulates the information it's allowed to publish or approve will dictate how people think, when they think, and what they are allowed to think about. Whitney quotes a book by Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, which basically talks about how AI is going to control how we perceive reality by taking control of online content in its entirety. When these diabolic plans are fully in motion, Whitney warns that people's cognitive abilities will be so completely diminished that we won't be able to perceive reality or make sense of anything without AI doing it for us. During the interview, Whitney also talks about BlackRock and how its incursion into Bitcoin might be way bigger than we believe. As we bring you clips from this thought-provoking interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
There's been a push for several years, but now it's gaining an insane amount of momentum in steam. But it really goes back several years. And the goal is to have a regulated internet, which means the end of online privacy and anonymity. And they want to do this by having people link a government-issued ID to their internet access and internet activity.
Who is they?
So in the U.S., it's come from the government, but it's not. A lot of government policy, whether it's about this or something else, doesn't come organically from the government. It comes from think tanks. It comes from groups like that, or even the WEF, the World Economic Forum, that are then given to politicians, and politicians legislate and enact it, and then the state enforces it. But it's not necessarily the ideas of the legislature and the state itself, these policies. And more often than not, these think tanks are funded by corporations and billionaires and all of these guys. And they also own the politicians, so it's really them creating the policy. And they use the state as an enforcer to force it on the public, right? So that's, I guess, the global public-private partnership is what my colleague Ian Davis calls they, right? And I think it's pretty fair. He puts the BIS at the top, by the way, of the pyramid. This policy, one of the earliest iterations of it, at least in the United States, was during the Obama administration. They called it a driver's license for the internet. The idea of, in order to access the internet, when you set up, internet connection at your house, the internet service provider links all of your internet traffic to your ID. And in doing so, the government and the signals intelligence arm or intelligence agency of the government then has access to not just everything you're posting and writing online, but also everything you read and consume online in
And
general.
everything you buy.
And everything you buy. Totally. I mean, this whole push is completely related to ending financial anonymity and financial privacy as well. It's a completely interrelated thing. And I've done pretty extensive deep dives on this going back to probably like 2021. Because it's very tied up with how they're likely to force this regulated internet on the populace. Because they're not just going to be like, let's do this now. I mean, people aren't going to go along with it. So they need some sort of event that gets people angry and afraid and panicking in order to stick it through. So basically, this is going to be folded into, I guess, what I would call a Cyber Patriot Act. The Patriot Act being the legislation pushed through in the U.S. after September 11th, 2001. Right. A lot of which wasn't necessarily related to anything to do with 9/11, but was a huge power grab by the state taking advantage opportunistically of the panic after 9/11. So they need some sort of event like that to ram all this stuff through. But the plans have been on the books for a very long time, and it's not just the U.S., it's really everywhere. I mean, I think in the U.K. you have something called like the online safety bill. They have all these different excuses,
Exactly.
a lot of it, like the online safety bill. They'll say, oh, it's about protecting children. But really, it's about ending encryption, which law enforcement in the UK and the US have been trying to do so hard for years and years and years. I mean, Bill Barr, who was Attorney General under Trump in the U.S., was like, that was his main policy goal, was to end encryption. And he talked about it all the time, but a lot of people didn't really pay attention, I guess. But in the UK, it's a similar push because, of course, as I'm sure you're aware, the UK national security state and the US national security state are very intertwined, specifically signals intelligence, the whole Five Eyes alliance, which is obviously includes more countries, but it's UK and US dominated, obviously. It's not like Australia and New Zealand are running the show there.
During the interview, Whitney explains that while the regulation in itself is completely abhorrent, the manner in which it is being enforced is even more evil. According to the renowned journalist and writer, they will present their plans under the guise of protecting underage users or stopping cybercrimes. However, what they are really doing is introducing more instruments of control until the entire system is completely under their control. Whitney also points out another important fact that most of us are not paying attention to. While they are doing everything to take complete control of the internet, they are also pushing for people to live their lives online as much as possible. Almost every part of the physical world is currently being eroded by an online substitute. Work, education, investing, and even everyday tasks like ordering groceries are all done in the digital realm to make it easier to capture everyone all at once. Let's get back to Whitney's interview.
So in terms of what we're talking about with government, regulation of the internet and all of this, it's coming, right? We're already seeing the first signs of it here. There's an obvious push to censor more speech and link people's speech to their ID and have it more surveillable than ever before. Gutting encryption, why do they want to do that? So they can read everything that you say and all your transactions, follow them all. There's a similar effort in crypto and specifically with Bitcoin to criminalize mixers and criminalize any sort of service that affords you increased financial privacy. So
if you're a business owner, then animated
So a big complaint about Binance from the DOJ is that they were allowing people that were subjected to U.S. sanctions to use their service, but they're not really like a U.S. company, are they? But the U.S. government, the U.S. is an empire. They want to be able to go to any country and say, you can't do that. We're actually in charge. You know what I mean? So Binance not being under their thumb and being active in all these other countries, allowing people in Iran to use their services, for example. I mean, that was a big sticking point for them. It wasn't like criminals, terrorists in Iran. It was just like people in Iran. They're subject to U.S. sanctions. You're not complying with U.S. sanctions. And so we're going to charge you $1 billion and take out your chief executive and put our people in charge, This is the mafia, guys. I wrote a 1,000-page book about how the government is in the U.S. is organized crime, specifically the Department of Justice, and that's what they're doing. And keep in mind too, the DOJ has an insane amount of Bitcoin it holds, and they want more. Well, I definitely think Bitcoin has the potential to be a tool for financial freedom, but I think there's major efforts well underway to co-opt that to serve the same agenda. right? And so I think people in the Bitcoin space that want it to be a tool for financial freedom need to get wise to those efforts to co-opt and resist, because it's either a tool of financial freedom or it's not. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
if you cede enough territory and let them like completely dollarize Bitcoin and turn it into like a tool of U.S. empire to keep the dollar afloat and like, you know, keep dollar hegemony going forever and ever and ever, and, you know, are saying it's a flaw in Bitcoin that you like can't put dollars easily on Bitcoin and all of this. I mean, no, I mean, the whole point supposedly, right, of creating Bitcoin was to give Wall Street banks the middle finger and create something that had immutable sound monetary policy, correct? So if you allow them to co-opt it so it's not those things anymore, what are you left with?
The same old world.
Is it a tool of financial freedom, or is it just, has it, the promise of Bitcoin been hollowed out and replaced with Wall Street garbage?
Is that what you think the issue there, like ETFs? Are you alluding to the ETFs?
There's all sorts of things
Right.
that are happening in Bitcoin right now that could be under that umbrella. But when you start to have people like BlackRock being like, you know what, we actually like Bitcoin now, that's a sign to pay attention. So I think people need to, in the Bitcoin space, need to be very aware that there is a fight being had right now about the future of Bitcoin. And you have to decide which side you're on. Are you going to fight for Bitcoin to be a tool of financial freedom, or are you going to allow it to be co-opted by the powers that be that it was supposedly designed to resist them and, you know, be something they can't control? Are you going to give them control of it? I mean, the answer should be no to any Bitcoiner worth respecting, in my opinion.
Whitney's warnings about the big conspiracy against Bitcoin are not new. In a Bitcoin magazine article from last year, the journalist revealed a strong connection between the Department of Justice, anti-crypto senators like Elizabeth Warren, and increasing narratives about Bitcoin being the payment of choice for well-known terror groups. According to the article, many of the groups looking to allegedly combat cybercrime in the US, including the DOJ and the FBI, are part of an international public-private partnership housed within the World Economic Forum, the infamous You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy organization. Whitney further revealed that this group is not concerned about fighting cybercrime, but is solely focused on controlling every aspect of our lives. In the article, Whitney wrote, "This public-private partnership, the WEF Partnership Against Cybercrime, or WFPAC, is run by a former intelligence agent named Tal Goldstein, whose military intelligence career was marked by his efforts to have intelligence agencies essentially fuse with private technology companies in his native Israel." She further revealed that the FBI, DOJ, and intelligence agencies of Israel and Britain are included in this partnership, as are the too big to fail banks like Bank of America and tech companies like Amazon and Microsoft. The objective is clearly not just to fight cybercrime, but something much more sinister. What are your thoughts on Whitney's interview? Please share your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like